right. I'm Mathew Lasky. I'm GLAAD's Director of Communications. After a decade of living in New York, I'm moving back to the Midwest. On my journey home, I'm stopping in 4 battleground states to talk to LGBTQ voters about the upcoming election, why they're voting, and what issues matter most to them. The first stop on our journey west is the Keystone state of Pennsylvania. Today, we're in Allentown meeting up with Connie, a non-binary recent college graduate who we met through our friends at the Bradbury Sullivan LGBTQ Community Center. After finishing school in California, Connie's moved back to their hometown. Hello!
Hi.
It's so nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
Under normal circumstances, I would give you a hug.
I know, I'm like ready to shake your hand, but I'm like, yeah, welcome to Allentown.
In 2016, Donald Trump was the first Republican presidential candidate to carry the state since 1988. He did so by a margin of just over 44,000 votes, making Pennsylvania a key battleground state this election.
So we're in Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's like the 3rd biggest city metropolis area after Philly and Pittsburgh.
In the state of Pennsylvania.
In the state of Pennsylvania.
Got it.
So it's not super big
Yep.
because it's still Pennsylvania,
Right.
but we're like technically a city.
So now that you come back to
Yeah.
Allentown as, a non-binary person, what's changed? Has your perspective changed?
Yeah, so for one thing, I definitely notice queer people more here. I'm like, wow, they do exist.
Do you ever think when you're like walking around, do you ever try to like embody that experience of seeing somebody that's openly queer?
Yes, definitely. I always, try to be confident when I'm out and just like be myself, because I know that if I was younger, like, and I saw someone who was queer or just like out as non-binary, it would mean so much to me. And I was like, maybe there are baby queers who see me and they're like, oh my God, it's a queer person, or like, that person has like short hair, or that person's like wearing clothing that maybe other people wouldn't wear, like pear. And I always try to remember that like quote that like your existence is resistance, and just like have confidence in who I am because it can help other people be who they are.
We're sitting in Pennsylvania right now, and Pennsylvania has been getting a lot of media attention, being a battleground state. What does it feel like right now for you here?
Yeah, you can definitely see that in Pennsylvania. Different like political signs, it's like switches every other house. There's a street not that far from here. Every house, almost every house, has either a flag or like a sign out saying who they're voting for, and it feels like people put them out just to like oppose their neighbors. This is like very similar to what a lot of neighborhoods look like. One neighbor will put out a sign like that, the other neighbor will put out an opposing sign
directly across the street.
Yeah, and then like when you see 2 houses that are like next to each other have the same sign, it's the best feeling.
Yeah. Millennials and Gen Z are the biggest voting bloc now, but oftentimes people our age don't turn out to vote. Why was it so important for you to turn out even last election?
I think it's just so important to get your voice heard. I don't think that young LGBTQ people realize how much the legal systems affect their everyday lives. When I was 17, gay marriage was made federally legal, and it was very exciting, but it also made me realize that for the first 17 years of my life, like, partnership the way I wanted it was just completely deemed abnormal by the legal systems. When a legal system otherizes identities, it leaves room for a culture where like being called gay or being called lesbian can be an insult, because the government is essentially being like, yeah, it is abnormal to be that way. I think there's still so much to fight for within the LGBT community. I think we've been othered for so long that when we taste freedom, we sometimes forget people in our own community who are more marginalized than us. And I think that needs to end. I think we need to continue to fight for people who may not share our identities but are still part of the queer community. We're not free until we're all free.
What would you say to somebody who isn't registered or doesn't plan on voting? Would you have a message for that person?
Because of like voter suppression and just miseducation about voting, I personally think that voting is a privilege in the United States and not a right like we say it is. And if you have that privilege, I think you have to stand up for your community, whatever your community is, and vote.
It's critical to make a voting plan. What is your voting plan this election?
Yeah, so my voting plan is that I've already requested a mail-in ballot, and then my mom and I are going to fill them out and then by hand bring them to our voting place. I'll also be working the election polls, so if things were to change, I could just vote where I am working.
There are a lot of dates that are flying around. You got to remember to register to vote by a certain date. You have to apply for your absentee ballot. What are the important dates for Pennsylvania voters? What do we need to know?
Yeah, okay, so the last day for voter registration in Pennsylvania is October 19th. Super easy to register to vote. You can do it online. The last day to request a mail-in ballot in Pennsylvania is October 27th, and we have no excuse needed mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania. So you don't need to be like, oh, I'm out of town. You can just apply for a mail-in ballot.
Well, Connie, this has been such a pleasure. I wish it weren't COVID times so we could
know.
hug, but maybe we can do.
Yeah,
should we
totally.
do the...
Thank you for talking to me.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh. Right as we ended, it started pouring rain. But it was so exciting to meet Connie. I'm so excited that they are going to be working at the polls on Election Day. That's so awesome. A reminder that the last day to register to vote in Pennsylvania is October 19th. If you need to get registered or check your status, you can go to glad.org/action. Next stop is Columbus, Ohio. See you there. Woo!